So today is National Holocaust Memorial Day, and in conjunction with that, they released stats recently that claim 1 in 20 Brits, adult Brits, do not believe that the Holocaust actually happened. And this blew my mind, because how can you deny something that is in living memory? There are still people alive today, at this very moment in time, with the tattoos on their arms that they had forcibly put on them by the work camps or the concentration camps. You still can observe and listen to and interview people who were in the camps, people who lost family to the camps, people whose family were exterminated. You can go and talk to soldiers, members of the Third Reich, members of the SS, etc. That some of them are still alive. They're still looking for these people. You can talk to people who worked in the camps, the Jews that were made to operate the camps in exchange for their own life. You can talk to the German soldiers who worked in the camps, guarding the camps. Some of these people are still alive. This is in living memory. This isn't something that happened 200 years ago. People alive today can remember this. I don't know how you can deny such a horrific act. You can still go to Auschwitz and see the pile of shoes that they took from the dead bodies. So it really baffles me how someone can deny such a thing as this. It really does. This is living memory. This is modern history. If you read Hitler's book, Mein Kampf, he details his hatred for the Jews, how he blames them for all of Germany's problems. He details what he wants. If you read the memoirs of people like Goebbels, etc., they detail the hatred of the Jewish people. They detail what they want. There are still people giving interviews, people in documentaries today that were in the camps, be they workers or victims or detainees. So how? Something like this. Are they all paid actors? Are they all Alex Jones-esque crisis actors that make it up for money? No. These people lived it, breathed it. They were in the camps. This is unbelievable that people can actually deny that arguably one of the worst single genocidal atrocities of human history never happened, or at least that it was exaggerated. Now, I've spoken to these types of people before. At one point, I had a member of my family he was on the road to Holocaust denial, and he was showing me pictures of the camps, supposedly of the gas chambers, which had a wooden door, and he was arguing, well, why isn't gas leaking at the bottom of the door? Why don't prisoners revolt and bust that door down? Okay, so you've got an unreliable textbook. That doesn't debunk the whole Holocaust, in general. Let me make it clear. It doesn't matter whether 6 million Jews died in the Second World War. It doesn't matter whether it was 2 million Jews that died in the Second World War. It doesn't matter whether it was 1 Jew that was murdered by the Nazis in the Second World War. One innocent person rounded up and executed for their religion or for their race is one too many. In any case, doesn't matter whether it's Hitler, Stalin, whether it's anyone throughout history, Mussolini, does not matter. One person executed, one civilian executed unarmed for the crime of belonging to a certain race is one too many. So you can argue numbers all you like. You can argue that it was 6 million, 2 million, 1 million, that there were 20 million Soviets that were killed by the Nazis, which is true. There were 20 million Soviets. There were other groups that were murdered by the Nazis, gays, gypsies, black people, etc., disabled people, blah, blah, blah. Of course, this is all true. This is all historical fact. But this does not change the fact that Hitler's ideology, his fundamental scapegoat for his ideology was Jewish people. In the very first line of Mein Kampf, he blames the Jewish media for creating smears against him. This man used Jewish people in all his propaganda posters, all his propaganda videos, all his speeches. He was blaming them, and them specifically, for the ills of German society. He never stood on the podium, as far as I know, and said disabled people are to blame, excuse me, black people are to blame, or gypsies are to blame. Never once did that. He said it was the Jews. The Jews, the Jews, the Jews, the Jews, the Jews. You can go on YouTube right now and look up a Hitler speech. He blames the Jews, by and large. Sometimes he mentions communists and he mentions socialists and he mentions this and that. He blamed the Jews. They were his number one scapegoat. So that is why the Holocaust resonates with them much more than it does for anybody who's Russian. You go to Russia and you say Russian people died in the Second World War at the hands of Nazis, they will take it as fact. But it will not resonate with them in the same way that it will resonate with Jewish people, because Russians weren't demonized and picked out and made this number one scapegoat of an entire regime that lasted well over a decade. They weren't made the ones who were blamed for all the problems and then rounded up. And they weren't only gassed, they were shot. They were, executed on the street where they stood. They had their houses razed. They had their possessions taken. They had their stores burnt down in pogroms and things like that. These people weren't just rounded up, put in a camp and worked to death or gassed, as horrific as that is. They also had their lives, literally their lives, taken and shaken and broken. Literally. If you had a Jewish member of your family 150 years ago, you were likely to have your door kicked in and be dragged off in the middle of the night by the SS or the Gestapo. The Nazis had pseudo-scientific methods to discover who had Jewish blood. When you start talking about a religion or a faith as in the blood, you've got a serious problem on your hands. Because then it doesn't become about who's practicing Judaism, who's going to synagogue. It becomes about who's got the blood. And ironically, Hitler had the blood. But he, of course, wasn't going to be rounded up and detained and beaten and worked to death or gassed by his own people. Ironically enough, Hitler's doctor, here's a fun fact, or fun as fun can be in this subject. Hitler's doctor, when he was a little boy, his family was very, very poor. So his doctor, who was Jewish, used to come round every so often and give them prescriptions, etc., medicines. And he would say to them, well, we'll sort something out, don't worry about it. And he would give them essentially freebies. And when Hitler came to power, he gave this doctor an honorary pass. In fact, he dubbed him the honorary Jew. And he decreed that any member of the SS or the Gestapo that rounded up this man, anybody under his rule that persecuted this man, would answer directly to the Führer himself. And this man gained a free pass. So there's a little fact for you. But when you start talking about religion as blood, imagine if someone said you've got Christian blood, you've got Muslim blood. You're walking a very, very dangerous line, because it stops being about who's practicing the religion, and it starts being about who's got the blood, who's got the ancestry. I'm an atheist, hard line, straight down the middle atheist. I reject Judaism, Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, all of it. I've got Jewish blood in my family, on my great grandmother's side, I believe. Under Nazi rage rule, I would be rounded up, and my family will be rounded up, thrown into a concentration camp, and either worked to death or gassed. Even though none of us, me, my wife, my son, none of us, my parents, my in-laws, none of us, sister, brother-in-laws, none of us are practicing, observant Jews. So think about it. You didn't even have to be Jewish to be killed for the crime of being Jewish in Nazi Third Reich. So it really, really baffles me how people can deny such a thing. How they can deny the fact that Jewish people, and not just Jewish people, but disabled people, gay people, gypsies, things like that, were persecuted, rounded up and put to death under Hitler's rule. Please think. Think. Because that is a very, very dangerous thing to start saying. Because it doesn't, not only does it deny what's happened in the past, it opens the door for many, many horrific futures as well. That's it. You got a nice little bonus video today. Thanks for watching. that has been Holocaust denial. So I'll see you next time.